That means we're live.
Yes, that's right. In 3, 2.
Yeah, producer offside. Hey, we've got a producer. No, we don't actually. Come on, that would be exciting. Okay. I'm going to do that thing where I check that all the streams are working, as Andrew did last night, as I do most nights, just checking the checking everyone's.
Well, whilst you're doing that, should I say hi to people?
Yeah, say hello.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hi everyone.
Welcome to Friday night, to what is going to be a really fantastic live stream. It is fantastic to see you all here and to be with you. And needless to say, look, you know what you're signing up for. Those of you who've got the tasting pack and you're ready to go, it's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you for joining us. We've got, you can just see them to the side here. We've got our bottles lined up. We'll talk a bit about what's going on, but hopefully you've got your tasting mats in front of you and your samples. And it will be brilliant as we enjoy 5 really special whiskies that each have a story to tell. And we're going to dive into the story behind all of them and the festival element of it, and go from there. So there you go. I hope I provided enough words to fill that out whilst you were checking things and we're ready to go.
You did. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay. We are live. Lots of people tuning in, which is great. Thank you so much. Just checking all 3 streams are working, and they are. And of course, most people are watching on the group, which is great. If you're not a member of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society group yet, that's the best place to get all the comments and questions in tonight for the festival live stream. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Andrew Debbage, our cellar master, myself, Matt Bailey. We're going to talk festivals. We're going to talk about the festivals, some of our experiences around them, some of the drams in front of us tonight. You've got the packs. I don't need this. I don't need this on anymore. So we're going to have a chat about everything that's going on here. And please throw your comments into the stream. Post up your photos of your setup. There's been about 40 posts already in the last 10 minutes of the setups with people posting that are far fancier than even this table with my beer in the way. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. That was actually proudly sponsored by James Squire.
Yes,
the first 10 minutes of this stream. So sorry, I cut the sponsorship short there, guys. Okay, so where do we start?
Well, shall we talk about festivals in general and why we're doing this?
Yeah, let's talk about the reason why. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. I was throwing that one to you.
Yeah, okay. I mean, you've been to a lot more of these festivals than I have. Well, I think, by a long shot, by maybe
I've been to the Isla Festival twice, and I was in Speyside around about the time of the Speyside Festival, but I wasn't specifically there for it. So I can only claim 3, in fact.
Yeah, okay. Festivals. Yeah. I mean, last year, 2018, I did Speyside Festival, and in 2019, I hosted at the Isla Festival, which was a tremendous amount of fun. It was a lot of fun for me and a lot of fun for all the guests. However, the real shame was, I think I've said this before, I had the biggest head cold on that day at Isla House. I couldn't smell a damn thing. And people kept pouring lovely whiskies into glasses and going, oh, what do you think of this? And me going, whiskey. It smells like whiskey. Yeah. That's about as nuanced as I can get right now.
I'll tell you one thing that was interesting. Many members will know that we have in the past organised these fantastic society tours to Scotland, the Ultimate Whisky Tour to Scotland, we used to call them. We've done 4 of them. And the timing of that tour was always that we would arrive on Isla the week after the festival had just finished. So you can imagine it's a massive event for the island, huge event for the distilleries and the staff, and they get to the end of that festival and they just go, oh, as they recover and breathe a huge sigh of relief. And then 2 days later, we from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society turn up and say, hey, we're here again.
Hey, we're here.
But it's been fantastic because on each of those occasions, we've been able to just get on the tail end of some of the products and the festival bottlings that have been available that they've been able to pour out for us. And we've been able to piggyback onto the vibe of it. And then, as I say, for 2 years, I actually went ahead a week earlier for the Fest. And it was in 2014, I was there for the festival and caught up and had a beer with our very good friend, John McShane.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you're watching, John.
And John does often tune in, and I want to thank John again for being a part of our live streams in the last few weeks as well. And they've got a festival tasting. Well, they've got a small one tonight, but they've got another one next Friday night as well. So if you feel so inclined to watch a live stream at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, you can also tune in to the UK ones.
Yeah, but that was a fantastic. That made my I just landed from. I did the trip all the way from Sydney 24 hours on a plane, got into Glasgow Airport, hopped in a car, drove all the way around to Kennercraig, hopped on the ferry, got off the ferry, drove off the road, and there was John and flagged me down, and we had a beer together. Oh. And then I fell asleep and died.
I think one of my favorite experience, well, not one of my favorites, but one of the standout experiences of last year for me was when I found out that there was a boot full of Campbelltown whiskey in my car that had been put there, and I hadn't been informed that it had been put in there. It was a Hertz rental car, and then I had to drive from Edinburgh to Campbelltown.
Right.
And I had to be there at 10 a.m. So we'd already had a big night the night before, and then I had to leave the vaults at the latest of sort of like 5:45 to make sure that I made it to Campbelltown, because it's about a 4-hour drive, and that's assuming no stops and no traffic and no sheep on the road kind of drive. So it was.
Which you can't assume.
You can't assume that. You can't. Assume. Yeah. So it was kind of like it was a good drive though. It was a good drive.
But obviously the festivals are fantastic things. The Isla Festival, which is Fascila, which is actually a whiskey and music and culture festival, has been going for a long time. Speyside Festival kicked off, I'm going to guess, 10 years ago, maybe. That's a guess. I might be wrong on that. The Campbelltown Festival is a fairly new one as well. And obviously the purpose of these festivals is to bring tourism into the area, to shine a light onto the distilleries that participate in it. Look, if we're totally honest, I suppose from the industry's point of view, it's a bit of a marketing and sales campaign and awareness, but they are fun. The mood and the atmosphere that goes through the place is fantastic, and it really peps and lifts the industry up. And so you can imagine they're all quite devastated that the festivals have all had to be cancelled this year. And I think it's fantastic that we can, as a bit of a consolation prize, hold a virtual festivals tasting and still participate in this form and still enjoy the whiskies that we wanted to enjoy. And I know that's facing the wrong way, but the special festival bottlings have all got special labels on them, and we should probably drink one of them.
Yeah, we should. Just a few little points. As you would have noticed in your pack, you got the tasting mat that you can lay out in front of you and put your glassware on, and most of you already done that. I've seen a lot of people doing that already. But also, as we said, we're bringing the festival to you, which was a little document enclosed. For the full tasting notes to play along as well, just dig out your May outturn, because all the releases were in there. So we took an effort not to print more paper. So that's all in there right now. So, and we'll get on to June eventually, but let's have a dram.
Let's have a dram. Number one. Now,
for those playing at home, 35.254 Pure Decadence. We're going to start with that one.
About 2 minutes before going live tonight, we suddenly looked at the lineup, and I was wondering whether starting with something that spent time in sherry was a good starter. We'll find out in a moment. Send us your thoughts, what you think about that. But straight off the bat, with a bit of sherry influence, and then also virgin oak. There's a bit of colour in that.
There is a bit of colour.
Yeah. Should do this every Friday night, shouldn't I?
I'm game if you are. So it's just pay attention to the fact that it's 63.9% for a moment. That is quite up there. That's quite a big proof, especially for your first whiskey. If you haven't had a calibration dram or a cleansing ale, it might be a bit of a punch.
And I touched on this in last night's live stream, talking about the fact that a lot of the distilleries 10, 11, 12 years ago made the decision to start filling their casks at higher strength than was traditionally the case in the past. And so as a result of that move 10, 12 years ago, what we're now starting to see is more and more casks come out at higher strength than we would previously have seen.
Yeah, so, you did touch on that last night. I mean, perhaps this was filled at a 69.9 or something. I
have no doubt about it. Yeah. There's no other reason. I mean, we used to get... I nearly said the distillery name.
We're not going to say the distillery names tonight. We screwed that up last time. He said one, I said one. I was like, well, okay, we're going to try our hardest not to.
We used to get casks from this distillery a lot in this age range, and they were typically 55 to occasionally 58, 59%.
Yep.
So for one of these to jump up to 63.9 tells me that, particularly when you look at the wood it's been in as well, where you would expect warm evaporation or loss. That's a surprise. So Pure Decadence, 35.254 should be your first one.
Even on the nose, I agree with that name. You know, it's a decadent nose.
It is.
It's quite chocolatey. It's quite.
And I'm going to be bold and say, you know what? That reeks of virgin oak.
Yeah, it does. It has a definite virgin oak nose to it. But it's not overwhelming the spirit. I'm still getting a bit of sherry.
Puncheon, not butt.
Puncheon, not butt.
Sorry, dad joke number one.
So pour a bit of that into your glass and move that around a bit and have a nose. Like I said, it's quite high proof. And I know we've got some big 35 fans at the Society, myself included. I was really expecting that 63 to hurt. It's quite balanced on the palate for its proof. And I haven't added any water yet. We do have a bit of water here if you want to add any.
Wow.
Oh.
It's riveting television, isn't it? Just watching two guys sit silently going.
And swilling.
Yeah. Man, how good is that?
Yeah. It's a little bit drying on the palate.
Oh, well, sorry, palate or finish?
No, on the palate.
Right, okay.
I don't get on the finish, but I get on the palate, get an immediate on the palate, get that mouth puckering dryness. Could almost be spicy and dry profile, but it's
good call.
You know, it's deep rich in dried fruits, but yeah.
Yeah, no, and for me, the finish just comes with the second wave. You swallow, having already taken in all the flavors on offer. Then there's this little pause, and then along comes this truck of additional flavors on a second wave afterwards. That's a beaut finish.
Do you get even the slightest bit of like spearmint on the finish?
A little bit,
like just that.
Yeah, but it's
just a whiff.
Spearmint.
Yeah, it's just a whiff. Yeah.
Again, very typical of virgin oak.
Yeah.
And you get it at the tail of the finish now as well. Comes back again.
I'm just going to, whilst we're enjoying that dram, that's fantastic. Caleb Chan's taking bets for us the last 10 minutes. Okay. Any thoughts on adding water with this 35, asks Caleb? What do you reckon?
Sorry, Caleb, what's the question, mate?
Any thoughts on adding water?
Well,
with this particular dram?
I don't want to. I suspect if I did, it might do something and go somewhere or change a little bit.
I feel peer pressured into doing it. So I'm definitely going to give that a go. I'm just going to add it just a tiny bit, though. I don't think it's the kind of dram that's going to need a bunch.
Well, I come back to what you said at the start. You're expecting a big whack at 63.9. That's not there. It's softer than that.
Great example of balance and high proof not knocking you off your perch, says Darren Howie.
He's a smart man, Darren.
That's a smart comment. And I'm warm already. Dark cherries, says Liam Smee.
G'day, Liam.
G'day, Liam. Dark cherries right there. Great. Craig Morton says, great flavors. Can't wait to see what the rest are like if this was chosen as dram number one. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was a hard one. As Andrew sort of saying before, it was a hard one to decide where to start with this kind of lineup.
I think if you blindfolded me and held a gun to my head and said, gee, would you start a tasting with something that was in such, I guess a more pungent oak with sherry influence and then virgin oak, I'd have probably put it a bit down the pecking order, but it's working for me right now. I can see a comment from Mark Garraway there. Mark, I owe you an email. Thank you for that thing you sent me the other day. I will reply. It has nothing to do with tonight's tasting, but there you go.
There we go. And now it's immortalized on video forever.
Yes. It was a great question. He was asking about sister casks.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact, might be a discussion for another night, but
that's all right.
He's identified two casks that the Society's bottled, distilled on the same day, same cask, but they were put in different flavor profiles.
Yeah.
Tasting panel.
Yeah, right.
And I have a good answer, which I will tell you all about.
But I bet they're completely different whiskies.
Well, you'd like to think so.
You'd like to think so. Being single cask, I mean, they're going to be completely different. That's Mark Garraway also, speaking of Mark, I know you're getting singled out here a bit of pine furniture, tropical fruits on the nose.
Definitely pine. And again, that's that virgin oak influence, I would suggest.
Craig Morton also says, like the ISO beard, Matt. It's exactly what it is. It is an ISO beard.
you like my ISO baldness?
Yeah. He had a full head of hair before COVID. Joel Bradbury says, well, that sums up my whiskey tasting knowledge. Yep, it's whiskey. Yum. If you watch Andrew's video from last night, you'll be able to train your palate a bit there, Joel, and work out how to start identifying other flavors.
Hey, you added water. What did you think?
I've only nosed it with water so far. Sorry.
Okay. Did it make any difference?
Not on the nose.
Okay.
It hasn't made any difference on the nose yet. It's still the same nose as what it was. I only added a tiny bit, though. I didn't want to over the thing with water, and I've talked about this before, but you can always add more, but you can't take it out. So tread carefully.
It's interesting. It was the great Jim McEwen, who'd be known to many of you. Of course, Jim was a legend at Bemore before moving over to Brooklady. And then he also had a little fingerprint on Ardnahoe. But it was Jim who said to me when I was actually visiting him 10, 12 years ago, he said, in his opinion, never add water to a sherry cask. If it's a sherried whiskey, don't add water. That was his opinion on the matter.
Yeah.
Bit black and white. Not much room to move with that. But anyway, and I have to say, on the most part, it's a rare sherry cask that improves with water.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of them, they just do need a drop, particularly ones that have picked up a lot of tannin from the sherry.
Yeah.
The tannic ones sometimes need a bit of water to be tamed, whereas other, particularly older ones, can fall apart quite quickly. So you do need to be careful.
I mean, the point that I've made before on water, on adding, was that ex-bourbon casks can often really appreciate a few drops of water, especially if they're quite high proof. Young ex-bourbon barrels can really appreciate a few drops of water. Sherry casks, I don't quite go by that black and white sort of never, but I say tread carefully. That's
a good call.
Yeah, and old whiskey, almost never.
Yeah.
Although we've done that before, you and I.
Yeah, but it's the exception, not the rule, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the exception, exactly. Yeah.
What a delicious drop. Interesting. So it was a finish, nine years in the original ex Oloroso butt, and then I guess the maths tells us about 2 years in a Virgin Oak.
Wait, let me just check that. Yep, 9 + 2 = 11.
Well done.
Thank you.
I did like the mime there.
It's my mime calculator. I think it's really worthy of a Speyside festival bottling, though.
Very much so.
It's wacky. It's interesting. It's got multi layers to it. I think it's fantastic.
Well, let's just quickly identify something. What are two things you want from a festival bottling and a society bottling at that? First of all, you want something that, if you're going to turn to something from the society, you want something that might be a bit different to the commercially available expression. I mean, that's the ethos, the very ethos that the society was founded on. So straight away, you're getting something with that is a bit different to the regular lineup from the commercial offerings from that distillery. And then as a festival bottling, you want something that goes next level again, something that's a bit different, a bit standout. And I think they've achieved that. So well done, tasting panel in the UK. I think that's a great selection for the festival bottling.
You've got to understand, it actually takes years for them to actually formulate these. This is not sort of like, that would have been a work of 2 or 3 years, creating that with the extra maturation and coming up to saying, well, we hope this will be something that passes panel in time for 2020 festival, which is what, that discussion about should we release the festival releases given there aren't the festivals, which was that discussion that was happening.
That's a great point. And this is something, look, a bit timely and topical, just to go off distillery for a moment, but tomorrow is Ardbeg Day around the world for those of you who are fond of Ardbeg. And each year, of course, they bring out a special bottling. And what people don't appreciate is that they've got to plan that 7, 8, 9 years in advance. When you talk about the whiskey that's being celebrated that year, you've got to remember, well, it was conceived and thought of. It was 7 or 8 years ago that they thought to throw it into some different type of cask or to do something unique with it.
Yeah.
So these are all long-term projects, which I think we often forget and overlook that we're drinking something that someone did something to 12, 13 years ago for us to enjoy now.
This is not vodka.
Correct.
Joel says, really get that whipped cream on the finish with some sort of like dark chocolate or coffee, something rich with a little bit of bitter.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe a little bit of bitter oak, bit of sort of Pellegrino, a bit of red bitter. I like that. And Alex Moores says, such a good spirit quality. Love what the society does with this distillery. Yes, yeah. I
like Joel's comment. You should read Joel's out there, just below Liam. Go down.
We're getting there. We're getting there. Liam says 35s for life. Absolutely. Joel Rinaldi says, call me crazy, but adding water actually increases the perceived ABV on the palate.
Does happen. Not unusual.
Yeah.
Not unusual.
Not unusual. Exactly. Yeah. It does happen. And it can often accentuate certain flavors and makes it feel like it's a bigger whiskey on the palate, which I would call a positive of adding water. Yeah. It accentuates flavors that may have been a bit locked up in the ABV. Maybe in a few words, Andrew, I have a bottle of 33 to 138, which is thigh slapping dram. We are going to have a tasting of 33 139. That's tonight. What should we expect in regards to your thoughts on sister casks? Maybe save it for when we get to the 33. So keep that one in mind.
Yeah.
We'll get to that dram. Water took away that pure decadence for me. Maybe it's a bit sharp and the alcohol was taken over it. I might have overdone the water. Don't overdo the water.
You got the finger.
you got told. Anyone else picking up a Bert and Ernie vibe tonight from Andrew and Matt? Yeah, okay, sure. You know what? Let's stick with that. Okay.
Sorry, what was that?
Anyone picking up a Bert and Ernie vibe in here?
Oh. Well, it's better than Statler and Waldorf, which is what we normally get. So.
Statler and Waldorf. Okay. We're only one dram in. Okay.
Muppets. I'm not sure how to interpret Alexander Carter's comment there.
Good of Andrew to bring that radio guy in to do the talking. Sure. I don't know what that means, but okay. I'll take that as a comment.
You know what? At a tasting like this, and certainly if I'm hosting an event, very rare for me to finish all my drams. I noticed that. I always leave it behind,
you do. Yeah.
I'm struggling to do that with this one. This is a ripper.
Enjoying it a bit.
Thank you. Oh God, look at the color of that. So that, I suppose, is a signal to move on to number 2.
Well, we could. Yeah, we could. We should. Yeah. Robert Aker says, I'm still getting sardines on toast nose in a sweetness way. Okay. Sardines on toast. God, I love sardines on toast.
You do?
Oh, I love sardines on toast. So if that's a positive tasting to me.
I don't get the maritime character.
No, I don't get any maritime, but I don't actually get sardines on toast on that. I was making a comment on sardines on toast. Yeah. Sure. Let's move on to number 2. Joel says, any reason I'm not seeing the comments? I'm not sure. I mean, I think everyone can see the comments. It's in the Facebook group. We are
click on the video. So if you brought up the Facebook group,
click to explain.
And you're seeing your feed, actually click on the thing, and that opens up.
Yeah, expands it out and puts the comments down the side. Yeah, unless you're on mobile, in which case it's on the bottom. But it's should be all there. I'm just making sure we're not missing any comments. Keenan Sala says, a little bit of white pepper on the nose. Okay, yeah. And Dave Miller says, brings back the essence of BFG for me.
G'day, Dave. Good to see you, mate.
You remember the...
I have a bottle open at home.
You've got a bottle. That's right.
I
yeah,
have
you did
BFG open at home at the moment. Look at that colour.
Colour time. Let's nerd out on colour.
Wow.
There we go.
That's decadent, that colour.
No, that was pure decadence. This is 7.233 for those playing along at home. So if you want to open your sample of 7.233, a syrupy sweet tale of romance, that's we've got that here.
Can I just say, for those of you who are watching the live stream last night, I did a bottle kill on 7.28.
You did.
So last night was 7.28. Tonight we are 7.233. So there you go. Only 205 casks have passed by in the meantime.
So this is not a finish. This is not an extra maturation. This is a full maturation sherry cask, 13-year-old, also in celebration of Spaceland Festival 2020. There's 2 little tidbits about this distillery 7, that I'd like to make reference to, just for us all playing at home. First of all, the same guy who built this distillery also built Glenlossie Distillery 20 years earlier. And I find they are completely different profiles and completely different spirits than even today they are. But it's cool that there's that sort of background of late 1800s of whiskey distilleries being created and built up in that golden era, if you like. But the other thing I love about this is the very first time this whiskey appeared as a single malt was a 15-year-old in 1993, a good 10 years after the Society had been bottling this as a single malt whiskey.
And when you say official, that was actually under license with Gordon MacPhail, was it not?
That was. There you go. It was a 15-year-old under license with G&M that was, and then years later it was as a core range bottling. But I'm fascinated by that level of history where we were bottling this spirit as a, albeit single cask, single malt, a decade before it even appeared as a core range whiskey, if you like.
Yeah.
So that whiskey you were drinking the other night, that would have been
1968. It was distilled, for those who missed it,
and bottled in
2005 as a 36-year-old.
Yeah,
do the maths right there. No, 28-year-old.
28-year-old. Yeah. But there would have been some early sevens, like 7.1, 7.2.
Yeah, of course.
Which would have been 8, 9, 10-year-old whiskies or something like that. And most of the early society ones are quite young because they are they're time capsules of another era, but that's a discussion for another time. Let's have a nose of 7233. Without saying the distillery name, is there anything you wanted to remark on with this fascinating spirit?
Well, I want to give a shout out to my good mate Ian Logan, who's in Speyside at the moment. He works there. And I met him at the distillery there long time ago. Anyway, and he was pointing out to me, he said, when you look at the distillery and you look at the pagoda, the first thing you notice is that the roof of the pagoda is very steep. And he said this was why this distillery was always famed for being lightly peated, because when they lit the fire underneath and the peat smoke went up into the kiln, because the roof was inclined at such a steep pitch, the smoke pretty much went straight out rather than got trapped, and which would have contributed to a heavier peated spirit.
Yeah, right.
At the end, or malt at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so, hence the reason this distillery has always been a lighter one that's been favoured by the blenders. A little bit.
And if you ask the Shivers team and the Shivers Regal team behind their blending, they often call this distillery a dressing malt. Is a phrase I've heard a couple of times.
You're right.
Top dressing.
Top dressing.
Top dressing. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Which is where they've got other distilleries, which are these sort of the backbone, if you like, and the workhorse malts of their blend. And this one is the really quite flavoursome, rich character that is the top dressing, the icing on the cake, if you like, for their creations. But how exciting is it to be able to have a 13-year-old first fill sherry?
Ooh, she's grippy. She's grippy on the palate.
Ooh. 60. See, I actually taste the proof on this one more than I did the last one.
That's what I'm saying. It's got some bite.
62.3%.
Now the word syrupy appears in the name, a syrupy sweet tale of romance, and I get that. It's thicker, isn't it?
It's thicker,
much more unctuous on the palate. Unctuous. That's the word I don't use very often.
There's a question here. I'm guessing it's an Oloroso cask. You wrote this down, didn't you?
I just noted it was a sherry butt. I don't know if look, just smelling it, it's certainly not a Amontillado Fino. So yeah, I'm going to guess Oloroso.
Plums open ripening under the tree, says Rob Akers. That's a good tasting note.
It's a bit poetic of you tonight.
Very poetic. Very poetic for a Friday night. Missed out on the festival packs, enjoying the live stream and making do with the Westering Rhone. 10.180. Great cask. Nicely done, Annalisa. Joel Bradbury says this is my jam, and cognac vibes for me from Craig Morton. Cognac vibes.
I'll pay that.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely.
That grippiness from maybe a cognac from the next wine sort of spirit, I guess a bit.
Well,
there.
it ties in with, I can see someone else has just said there, Lachlan Bell's just said it's a distinctive distilled grape vibe. So there you go, exactly the same comment. Or observation, rather.
Tastes like hundreds and thousands turned up to 11. That's not very poetic. He says. And Liam Smee agree with Lachlan Bell. He gets the port wine / plums note. Very cool. Very cool.
G'day, Dan.
Yes, good to see you, Dan.
And good. You know Ian as well, of course. So fantastic. Oh, good rescue. I don't know if you saw that off camera, but that was you should be in Australian slips court. that was a great catch.
I almost spilled a beer over the mixing desk. That would have ended the night nice and early.
Wow, that is old school sherry, isn't it?
That is old school sherry. Mark Teague says, I understand this distillery has some history with Distillery 12.
It's next door. If I get my 12 right there, what's Distillery 12? Yeah, they're next door neighbours. That's what I thought. Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Look, they were sister distilleries, sat side by side. It was I can't remember the history now. When one went off to one company and one went off. No, it was back in the days of mental blank, doesn't matter. But yeah, they're still neighbours.
The good old days.
Side by side. What was the Canadian firm?
I'm going to try to drop all of that. Heron Walker? Or?
That's it, Heron Walker.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we did just say adding water to...
I reckon this is one that could probably take
might actually hold up with that.
Just
Update, it does take it. For me, anyway.
Doesn't do much for the nose.
They're very clean sherry cask. I like that as well. It's grippy, but it's very clean.
You know what? Tell you what, case in point, that is a sherry cask that improves with a drop of water. That is something now softer. I dare say ironically, it's oilier. And that sting, that little bit of bite has just gone from the palate now. And it is, I've said it already, but I'll say it again. It's old school sherry. It's a lovely drop. And at 13 years old, I think you're getting that really lovely sweet spot between spirit and oak. It's that sweet spot, as I say.
It's certainly not lacking any spirit character.
No,
like 13 years in a first fill is quite a long time for a first fill whiskey. For a first fill sherry cask, you often you see a lot of great sherry whiskies 9, 10, 11 years old. 13 years, it hasn't lost the spirit character, which is
aptly categorized, I'd have to say, into the flavor profile, a deep, rich, and dried fruits.
Yeah,
all of the above. It's funny. I think there's this perception among some members that the deep, rich, and dried fruits must somehow equal old. I don't know why that is. There's some people have made this causal link that the fact if it's to be deep, rich, and dried fruits, it must be 20, 25 years old or something like that. And that's not the case.
No,
honestly.
No.
There are some youthful whiskies that exhibit all those traits. Not that I think a 13-year-old is a youthful whiskey by any stretch of the imagination. It's middle-aged.
It kind of reminds me of those distilleries that we sometimes, those distillery codes we see sometimes that are typically peated whiskies, but are in the spicy and sweet or sweet, fruity, and mellow profile. Like the unpeated spirit runs from that distillery. Annalisa said before, the 10.190 Western Rhone, that was a sweet, fruity, and mellow from Distillery 10. There you go. Doesn't old and dignified mean old?
Did I say old and dignified?
No. Need a SMWS cardboard coaster for your beer. But you kindly gave them all on the way in these tasting packs. Mark, you're actually completely right. I have no SMWS coasters left in the office at all. We packed them all into the tasting packs for June. Andrew has one, which he's going to hold on to for dear life at this point, because that was I literally put them all. Where's your pocket gone? Whoops. But we don't have any. We don't have any left. But we're getting some new coasters printed up because we've got obviously our new monogram and everything needs to be a little bit updated there. And dignified, says Mark. Yeah, exactly. Amazing with water, says Joel. Okay, good to know.
I agree, Joel. That has really improved. I'm glad I added water. I would not normally have done that.
That's quite nice. Well, it was a bit of an interesting decision for us to go with 2 deep, rich, and dried fruit whiskies in a row. Quite a few of the festival bottlings were 10.188, 29.268. There were quite a few in that deep, rich, and dried fruits category, so it was going to be at least 1 or 2 in the lineup. But I'm glad we got to do those 2 side by side because they're 2 very different whiskies, very wildly different.
Isn't that great? They're wildly different, even though they're in the same flavor profile.
Yeah. The 12 profiles are a good guide.
It's a guide, absolutely.
Excellent guide.
Are we going to move on to number 3?
Yeah, shall we?
I'm going to suggest that everyone should palate cleanse because we're changing from sherry influenced whiskey to a bourbon influenced whiskey. So grab yourself a glass of water or a bottle of water or a something else that might work.
I dare not touch my beer again. I'll probably spray it all over my desk. You mentioned last night about sparkling water.
It works for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Water is a great palate cleanser, and if it's sparkling mineral water or sparkling water, the bubbles just tend to activate your taste buds a bit and just clear the palate more for me.
Whilst we're cleansing palates, craisins, says Rob Akers on the tasting note. There you go.
That. It was a good one. Yeah.
A classic example of water improving whiskey. Yep. Matt Wallace says he has a heap of those coasters. I had no idea I'd left any with you, but you can keep them. And James Bunton says, I'm enjoying a 64.441, a smile in a handbag and a hug with you guys. Thanks, James. And Rob says he's also on the sparkling water. Yeah.
Good of you to join us, James. Hope you're well, mate.
Hope you're well, indeed. Just see if there's any other comments coming through.
Well, whilst you're checking comments, I'm actually going to pour number 3.
Sure.
You got a clean glass for me?
That's it. Yep. Keenan says, I associate leather with old and dignified, but I also find it commonly within deep, rich, and dry fruits. Yeah, you will. I mean, it's one of those profiles that it's not just old whiskey that gets those leather notes that you sometimes find in a whiskey, like those, but you do often find old leathery notes in old whiskeys. You need something? You're good.
I will shortly, but don't worry.
Okay.
The show must go on.
The show must go on. So we've poured 52.32, highly entertaining for this one. Where's that sample of it?
Oh, that would be hiding right there.
So it's a 12-year-old oily and coastal. Give that one a pour.
Oily and coastal is a very enigmatic flavor profile, I have found. And I think if you look at some of the distilleries that typically or regularly get put into that flavor profile, what can we rattle off the top of our head? I think we've seen Klein Leash appear in that flavor profile a lot. Bunnahaven is there quite frequently. Glen Scotia.
Yep.
So, surprise, surprise, mostly coastal distilleries.
Yep. Yeah. But even some are unexpectedly sometimes in oily and coastal.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting that there are also distilleries that are known to occasionally throw a bit of peat in the mix? Well, they do peated campaigns.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Alrighty.
So this is for the Highland Whiskey Festival of 2020. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know really anything about the Highland Whiskey Festival. I know it's one of the newer ones of the whiskey festivals. I know Isla Festival, of course, Speyside Festival, Campbelltown Malts Festival, which we're going to explore both those other two shortly. But the Highland, that was one of the reasons behind the theming of this pack as well that you're enjoying, is that it's in celebration of all of the festivals: Speyside, Highland, Campbelltown, and Isla.
The thing is, if you go to the Speyside Festival, all the distilleries that participate in it are all in close proximity to one another, and you can get around. The Highland one is a very different beast, and this distillery is very isolated. It takes a lot of effort to get the distillery. It's right up the top on the northeast coast in Wick. Its nearest distillery neighbour would probably be Wolfburn, off the top of my head. Maybe will be a bit of a dead heat between whether Wolfburn is closer or Klein Leash, actually. Anyway, not too many in that part of that neck of the woods. You've got to do a fair bit of driving to get around. What else is nearby? Balblair is up
that way. Yes, yep.
Balblair, Klein Leash, the new Brewer distillery.
New Brewer. Sorry, yes.
The currently under renovation and restoration. And then I guess a bit further down south, you've got the likes of Dalmore, which is a wonderful caramel factory, by the way. We're aware of that.
Which one?
Dalmore.
Caramel factory. Yeah. Caramel factory. To our friends at White and Mackay, we love you. And we
keep up the good work, Richard.
We hope to see many 13s and 31s to come through the pipeline in years to come. Yes, but Caramel factory. We're all going to hell. Okay, that's good though. That's a good joke. Sorry, you actually got me there for a second. I was thinking in my head, he's going to say Dark Grains plant. He's going to say water source. There is in Invergordon, but not. Door, yeah, okay, but not. A romp around the region, says Morsey. Good to see you, Mors. Hope you're well tonight. Custard profiteroles on the nose, says Mark Garraway. This 52 is definitely one of my favorites from the festival out 10, says Caleb. Johnny Edwards says, smells like the beginning of making biscuits when you've got the butter, sugar, and vanilla essence with a pinch of salt all together. I really like that as a
That's
tasting.
a great call.
That's a very cool call there.
I'll tell you, for all our Melbourne viewers, those of you down in Melbourne, I'm nosing this at the moment, and I'm imagining. I have a Victorian passport, by the way.
You're okay. You're allowed to cross over. Sure.
I grew up there, but this for me is nosing like being maybe a couple of k's back from Port Phillip Bay and just wandering around and just getting that slight
bit of coastal air
off the. Not as strong as Sydney Harbour.
No.
But that Port Phillip Bay is just.
Jay Davis says this could have been dram number 1 in the comment section there. We're just going through the regions. We're going through the regions. I blame our cellar master. No. It's. You're right though. That could have been number 1. It's almost aperitif style whiskey in some ways. It's not very
It's an amazing distillery to visit, by the way. I thoroughly recommend it. Shout out to Malcolm, distillery manager. He's probably not watching, but lovely bloke, fantastic guy. Been in the industry for a long, long time. It is a weird and wacky distillery when you get there. It's one that was built. Basically, I think they tried to squeeze a distillery into some buildings rather than build a building around a distillery. It's
quite a few distilleries like that, though.
It's unbelievable.
It's like walking through Strathisla. I love that's my favorite example. It's like, and then we shoe on to still into this roof. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking of Dalmore, if you get to Dalmore, you'll see some really strange distilleries, stills that have been cut off at the top, and it was because that was the only way they could get it into the
That's right. Yeah, the flat neck one, the flat top. Yeah, flat tops. Yeah. William says, I met Mr. Caramel Factory. See my display picture. Yeah, you do have a display picture of you and Richard. It's a fantastic photo. Well done. Now, Dan Roberts asks an interesting question. The bourbon casks seem to be a lower ABV than the sherry casks in this pack anyway. Any reason? Obviously, the 93 is older, but any other reasons?
Can I apologise? As Matt was reading that out, I was actually looking at the comments lower down. So you might need to repeat that. Dan's just said, spend much time in Wick, AD. I have actually. I have spent some time in Wick. Great place. Sorry.
So let me try that again. The bourbon casks seem to be a lower ABV than the sherry ones.
Right.
In this pack anyway. Is there any reason for that? Obviously, the 93 is older, so that's...
cask size.
Cask size.
So the sherry butts, obviously the larger casks, different... No, I've gone... That's actually,
spirit to wood ratio.
Yeah. So, slower maturation. Therefore, less evaporation. I don't know. Does the science stack up there? Or have I reversed that on you?
The sherry casks ones are higher proof than the bourbon ones in this pack. That is correct.
Okay.
But how?
Well, is it sherry or bourbon? Is it just because those distilleries chose to fill at a higher strength and therefore that's probably the reason for it? Very
likely. Do you know what Distillery 52 fills at? I don't know.
No, I don't.
I think it's probably 63.4, 0.5. I really like that, though. I really like that.
It wasn't that long ago that the 17-year-old from this distillery won major awards as one of the... The 17-year-old won awards all around the world.
It was long ago. That was a while ago.
Okay, well, I'm clutching at the things I remember.
I'm just saying that was like 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
Well,
But the point was, it was those awards back then that suddenly catapulted a fairly obscure distillery into the public eye, and then they had to scramble to actually, distill more, get stock out there to meet that.
Yeah. And that 17-year-old was a ripper whiskey.
Oh, stunner.
Now,
this is a distillery that its moniker was, am I right in saying it's the Maritime Malt?
The Maritime Malt.
So how oily and coastal can you get?
Now, this is a good moment now, whilst we're sort of halfway through, for me to mention that this is the only distillery that has a double feature in the Society tasting packs. If you've got your June out turn already, that's great. If you don't, it's in your inbox shortly. It's next Friday, June out turn, and there's a tasting pack in it. And I've got mine here because that's but this is the tasting's on the Friday, the 26th of June, 7 p.m. with Andrew and I talking nonsense again like we are tonight. And there's 5 drams in here, and one of them is also 52. Just had an extra maturation in an extra turns cask.
Wow.
Good fun.
Caleb says, anyone put water in this one yet? Don't feel like it needs it. Caleb, I'm with you. I don't think it needs it either. If anyone has added a drop of water, please punch in some comments and let us know.
I'm not going to add anything to that.
Well, the other thing too is it's the lowest ABV we've had tonight.
Yep.
So it's certainly not screaming at my taste buds.
Mm.
I'll be honest and say I'm not getting a lot of bourbon cask influence.
No.
Even though it's first fill?
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm getting a lovely spirit character, though.
Yeah, beautiful
lovely
spirit character. Yeah.
It's funny how time and place and mood play such an impact on the flavor of whiskey as well. I mean, when I first nosed this is one of the whiskeys I have nosed and tasted before. When I first nosed this, I thought, I'm not really getting much of the oily and coastal notes.
Right.
But then I am now. It's like this time around, I really am.
Lachlan Bell has just said that water improved it.
Became velvety. Okay, very cool. Any comparison to the June 52? They're totally different casks, Mark. Very like one is ex Sauternes, one is ex bourbon, but they're radically different. And that one's called I Dream of Creamy, and it's a very sweet, creamy coastal malt, that one. And I think it's going to be very popular. We don't have heaps of them to go around because I bought a whole bunch of them into sample bottles for those packs. Dan Roberts says, this is what I always wanted from the OB, the same age and the same distillery to taste like. Yeah. So this is a good example of it. I mean, we're not comparing to OB. I think it's an unfair comparison anyway, and doesn't really make sense given it's a single cask.
Yeah.
But it's it's kind of what you want from a whiskey from this distillery, in my opinion anyway. With that coastal element, that maritime malt, as Andrew said.
Mm.
Very tongue dominant for me after the first 2 higher ABV sherry casks. Delicious. Brad, I hope you took a sip of some sparkling water or a glass of water or something, because that I know what you're saying there. And it is quite tongue dominant. We've shifted gears entirely. Keep your palate fresh here.
What a lovely drop.
Hmm.
Yeah. You know what? If I was hosting a tasting, if I was organising a tasting for a real live audience and I had this, I think I would put that at number 1 in the lineup, knowing that I'd be doing it a disservice.
Yeah, wow.
Because how often, the first whiskey is normally, those of us in the industry call it the death seat. The first whiskey is always the death seat because it's the first one of the night. You've come from whatever you've had to eat and drink during the day. Your palate's not quite calibrated. And the first one struggles to impress. And we find that at society events over the years. This one, when you look at the profile and what else we're tasting tonight, number 1 spot was probably the appropriate place for it. Mm. And yet it would have done it a tremendous disservice as a result. And I think it is just such a lovely drop.
Yeah.
And how many bottles of this did we get in the country from memory? Not from memory, because we're going to look it up.
We're going to look at the exact numbers here. It wasn't a whole lot.
Was it 18?
Where is it? 30.
30. Okay. Well, those of you who got a bottle of this, enjoy this at the appropriate time, because I think that is singing.
Mm.
Do you want to talk about scores?
Scores?
Where would you score this? What would you score this whiskey?
I don't like. No, I don't like scores. I like talking tasting notes and flavor, and the numbers always been a bit silly to me. But look, if I was scoring that, if I was giving it a score,
you and I know each other's score calibration.
We do.
So if you give a number, I'm going to know what you mean, and that's all that matters. They don't need to know what.
Yeah, this was just for us.
Yeah.
I'd give that a confident, like a proper 8.8.
Wow. There you go.
And I mean that. I think it's a ripper whiskey.
Well, that speaks volumes. So what a spectacular drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I do give quite a harsh score sometimes, as Andrew knows, and I know his calibration of scoring quite well as well. So it's that I think it's a lovely whiskey in that sort of. As I think someone said earlier, it's almost like what you want out of a 12-year-old expression from that whiskey.
I'll tell you now, audience, 8.8 is a big compliment. That's,
yeah. No, I mean it. I mean it's right up there. It's lovely, and I'm glad we got that one. Yeah, I'm glad we got to share that one around with you tonight as well.
Yeah.
52.32 was actually one of the slowest selling festival releases in May Outturn, surprisingly. Lasted more than a day online, I think. Mark, I don't...
Well, there were more bottles.
Yeah, well, there were more to go around, and it wasn't... I get that, you know, big sherried whiskies and desirable codes often vanish first. But as I've said before, I like using this phrase, but every Outturn has a sleeper. And there's these codes and casks that are often overlooked that all have been through the same stringent panel approval process as the others. And they are often ripper whiskies that people go, oh, I wish I'd jumped on that. It was sitting on the website for a week or something like that, or a day. And yeah.
Can I give you some insight? Years ago, 15 years ago, in the earlier days of the society, at the commercial whiskey space was very different at the time. And if you went to your local bottle shop, to your Dan Murphy's or your vintage cellars or whatever, the range was much smaller, and therefore public knowledge of certain distilleries was much smaller. And what we used to find when we would put out our bottling list, as it was known at the time, we call it Outturn these days, but there were some distilleries that just had that aura and reputation because that was what you saw at the local bottle shop. And the local bottle shops had a very small range at the time.
Yeah.
So anything that was distillery 4 or 24 or anything from Isla would leap off the page. And of course, every bottling list, which came out every 3 months at the time, would have all these obscure Speyside distilleries that no one had ever heard of. And some of them were the best whiskies I have ever had from distilleries that no one had heard of. So, you know, despite the fact that our local tasting panel would wax lyrical about them, we'd put a big badge on the thing saying Director's Choice or top scoring malt. We used to top scoring dram. I think
top scoring dram was one of the phrases. Yeah.
The fact that it was a distillery no one had heard of would affect the sale of that bottle. And you can't help but think in this lineup, 52, it's a distillery we don't see very often. It's a distillery you don't see commercially that much. And just by virtue of the fact that it's slightly unknown, would have contributed to the fact that it took all of 24 hours to sell out instead of one.
Yeah.
You know?
I think for me, in vein of Andrew's comment, then there's actually, I remember one of the first Outturns I received as a member. There was a 64 in that Outturn, and I looked it up. I want to know what that distillery was, of course, and I looked it up, and I
wanted more of it, mate.
I wanted more of 64. No, but I really didn't know anything about it, and I was like, but it was like it looked interesting, and I bought it off Outturn, and then went, oh wow, that's an incredible whiskey, and that even now to this day, I still say there's these, like I say, sleepers that sort of sit around and they're unbelievable whiskeys. Joel Bradbury says, is it bad that I couldn't remember what I bought, and did I actually get a 52.32? I think it was that or a 35.254. Yeah, that's called a whiskey habit. Yes, I know that one very well. Don't worry. There was a 6-year-old that turned up at about 4 tastings in a row trying to get it sold, says Craig Morton. A 6-year-old. It's a young whiskey.
From which distillery? Can you remember, Craig?
If you can remember the code, I'd love to hear what that was.
I know what you're talking about if you can give me the code.
And cheese twisties for a palate cleanser.
Cheese twisties for a palate cleanser. Wouldn't recommend it.
I mean,
whatever works for you.
You do you.
That's right. I mean, it's got to be Chicken Smith's crisp, surely.
Ooh. Yuck. Now that's the taste of childhood right there. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
So we're moving down into the bottom right of your tasting mat. Again, oily and coastal profile, and a distillery that I love. Absolutely love. Distillery 93.
Smoking Smugglers. Also
known as the other Campbelltown Distillery. And it is a joy and a treat every time it crosses my palate.
So it's a fascinating region.
Smell that. Oh, wait, when I smell a whiskey and I go, that's an involuntary release, by the way. I couldn't help that.
You heard it here first.
Oh, man.
Wow.
What a nose.
Oh.
I know. We both drink whiskey with our good friend Tony Chapman a lot, and Tony's often amused at the amount of emphasis I put on the nose. I really get carried away with the nose of a whiskey. Tony's more of a palate man. You know, you got to drink it, you got to taste it. But I am nosing that, and that is just taking me to wonderful places. What an incredible nose!
There's actually on the nose on that for me, and this is my first time nosing this whiskey and tasting this whiskey. There's actually almost like an iodine-y, like hospital bandage note that I don't often get out of this distillery, which is fascinating.
I'm going to come back to Craig. Craig's just said, not off the top of his head, probably second year of the Australian Society. The 6-year-old, back at the time, we had a 6-year-old Ardbeg that was called Elastoplast and Gauze Bandages, I think, from memory. Stornoway Black Pudding was another 6-year-old Ardbeg. Craig, I don't know if you were thinking of that. And the other 6-year-old...
33s.
Well, moving on. The other one we had was, we actually had some bourbons that were 6 or 7 years old at that time. So, Craig, I don't know if that's what you're thinking of, mate. Do let me know.
Good to see you, Franz. Sure, of course.
Franz in tonight.
Good to see Brooke, Franz,
Dude,
Ryan.
Franz.
He tuned in before. Here he is. There he is.
Franz, mate.
Slunger.
Franz, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're well.
Sweet like Muscatel. I could drink a pint of this, he says. Jeremy, I thoroughly agree. What does it need to get a 9 or a 9? Oh, he's talking about the scoring.
Okay. Well, that's our scale.
Yeah, it's a scale.
It's our scale. Everyone's scale is different.
I think anything over 9 is a truly once in a lifetime kind of whiskey.
Dave, I'm sure you've read it, but at the risk of a self-indulgent plug, if you go to that wonderful whiskey website called Whiskey and Wisdom, there is an article there on scoring whiskies, and it talks all about scores and calibrating and what numbers actually mean. You've probably read it, Dave, but for others, Whiskey and Wisdom, Scoring Whiskies, I think is actually the name of the article.
This is a lovely 93, says Rob Akers.
I'm in no hurry to taste this.
No, not yet.
I'm just happy to nose it, which is probably very boring live streaming. But
makes for great television, though.
It does, yeah. It's still giving. It's still giving.
Liam Smith says, hospital bandage, 100%. The smell of plaster bandages they make casks out of. As in like casts. Sorry, I think he means Sorry, I read that as casks. Yeah, your autocorrect is as good as mine at this point. But that's it's which is I find unusual for this distillery. I get that hospital bandage note in some 29s, in some 33s, even in some 10s, but I don't often see it in the 93s, and I think that's quite interesting. It's quite an exciting whiskey as a result.
Lachlan, I probably shouldn't read that out, mate, but that is a great comment. You, cheers, buddy.
Oh, Dan says he scored a bottle of the 93.128 from the Mayout term, one of my favorite whiskeys I've ever had. However, that 52 is exceptional. Going to keep an eye out for the 52s. Good man, Dan. Good stuff.
Now, this is called Smoke and Smugglers. The smoke's not obvious to me.
It's not obvious. It's obvious. Like it's obvious. It's almost not New Orleans coastal profile for me. It's
Where would you put it?
I'd almost put this in lightly peated.
Okay, right.
Yeah. And we do get some lightly peated out of 93. In fact, there's one on the website at the moment, which is great. The name of which escapes me.
Have you tasted this?
Only just them.
Aha. Okay. You know what's really funny? I was just thinking, this is the sort of whiskey that my friend Andrew Davis would like. And I've just seen his name pop up right here. Andy Davis, this is your, and Andrew, I know you do love this distillery, but wow. Can I say, this is something I really love about these live streams. Matt and I, not so much lately, and certainly not me, I've been out of action for a couple of years, but we love getting around the country and meeting members. And we're both Sydney based, so we certainly know our Sydney membership well. But it is great with these live streams, just being able to chat and talk with people in real time from the other cities who we don't get to see very often.
Yeah.
Mate, well done for putting these together.
Oh, no, thank you. Thanks.
And well done. And thank you, members, for joining in and participating. I can't quite convey to you the joy I get just seeing people's names come up on the screen over there. that we haven't seen for a long time, particularly in recent months, and being able to share a dram with you and share some thoughts. This is fantastic. I'm always getting emotional.
It's okay though. This is what the festivals are about, though. It's about bringing people together and having a good dram. And if that having a dram with some friends means doing it with a bit of distance at the moment, whilst things are just only starting to sort of open up here and there, but we planned this obviously well in advance. Some great comments on this.
Jeremy,
93.
Yes, the answer is yes, Jeremy. Susie Torres impressed us with her knowledge of codes at the time.
And big shout out to Susie and Danelle in our office, by the way, who were half the production of this as well. They're not on camera right now, but they, if you can big shout out for all their labeling and packing efforts on these samples. So huge shout out to those.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Danelle.
Absolutely. Yes, Mark. Sorry, that was the one I was talking about. 93.121, Slubbing Billy and Spotted Dick. That's on the website at the moment. Those younger 93s are so, and I mean this in a good way, they're brash. They're full of character. The older ones like this, these 17-year-olds, this is great. It's such a nose whiskey, isn't it?
Oh,
it's like I'm enjoying the palate on it, but the nose is just unbelievable.
Those of you who've been to tastings I've hosted would have seen that occasionally I would just grab a glass like this and walk around the room and talk, doing this for 5 minutes. This is a whiskey that is worthy of the cup. It's worthy of cupping. It's a lovely drop.
As opposed to the opposite, which is you chose poorly. That was the worst Indiana Jones reference I could possibly make. Come on.
That is brilliant. I quote from that movie regularly. People look at me strangely. I now have the unfortunate position of being one of the older people in the office I work at.
All right.
And I reference these things, and these young 20-year-olds look at me and go, huh?
Yeah, I've never heard of Indiana Who. Robert, this is exactly what I'm talking about. He says, my standout festival memory is getting very merry at the Dufton Fair and passing out in front of the snooker at the B&B. That's what the festivals are. They're just a lot of fun. And William says, agreed. Thanks for putting this live tasting together. The pleasure is all ours. I mean, we get to share these whiskeys and, like Andrew said, have a chat with people on the stream and discover them. So thank you.
Something about this distillery. Campbelltown, at the risk of getting a bit topical for a moment, Campbelltown did not have and has not had a happy history. At one stage, it was known as the whiskey capital of Scotland. There were 30 operating distilleries in this one town, and you've been there. It's a very small town. Yeah. So 30 distilleries would have been the lifeblood of the community. And for a whole stack of reasons, which we won't go into tonight, those numbers started to dwindle and fall, and a few things went against them. As competition got tight between them, they started to cut corners. Quality went down. Prohibition came in, which killed off half their market. And it went from having about 30 distilleries in the town to just 3, and then 2, and then arguably 1 with our good friends at Springbank flying the flag for a while. And this distillery, just a little bit further around the harbour, kept on going for a bit as well. And then more recently, Springbank opened up the distillery that most people know as Kilkerran, because that's why it's bottled, but obviously different distillery name there with mental blank.
Glengyle.
Thank you, Glengyle. So there are now 3 distilleries in the Campbelltown region, but this one has got a lot of love from its new owners. When I was there not too long ago, it was still very dilapidated and struggling. And then, sorry, I tell a lie, that was 2014. And then in 2017, it had a fresh coat of paint being done up. It's now been nicely branded and as having some life breathed back into it. So it is a wonderful distillery making great whiskey. And because of the previous owners who would do a lot of different campaigns to get different styles of whiskey, this distillery does a lot of different styles of whiskey in-house. So we've seen oily and coastal profile, we've seen lightly peated, we've even seen some heavily peated stuff from it.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of different runs, and as such, one of the reasons why I love the distillery so much, because it is such a kaleidoscope of flavors coming out of the one house.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Breathe, Andrew.
Breathe.
Yeah, it was a long sentence.
A question from the South American Gaucho: are those bottles on the shelf paper label? Look, I know you're just doing that because Andrew and I are in the same room and you like to wind me up, but yes, they are.
South American Gaucho. He's got a new moniker.
How many monikers do you have, Alejandro? You're a man of mystery sometimes.
Alex, mate, I haven't seen you for a while. I hope you are well. Fantastic. Good of you to join us.
Yes, those two are paper label. But I know you're just doing that because you know that it will get a rise out of Andrew. So that's okay. I'm going to ask him not to take the bait.
Is that over on the page?
That was over on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube.
We are broadcasting a few locations at the moment. Facebook page, Facebook group, YouTube. The best place is to come into the group, which is where the main, the bulk of the community is, and we can have a chat.
Hey, we talked about the nose of that for a long time. I'm now actually tasting it.
Yeah.
What a ripper of a dram. What a ripper of a dram. It sold out, didn't it?
Oh, they all did.
Bugger.
This is one of those ones that I said, oh, if it doesn't sell out, I'm definitely grabbing one of these. Only because I was like, even just on the spec, of course, it's just off the tasting notes in outturn. Yeah. I went, I've got to grab one of those. But if you like your teenage night, I almost said it.
Oh,
if you like your teenage 93s, and I know I do in that William Coastal profile, there's a 93.124 on the website at the moment as well. 3 a.m. Doner Kebabs. So grab one of those if you like. It's I won't say sister cask, but it's in the similar cask region, of course. If you go. Do you want to grab any of those?
I'm just looking at Joel's. Oh, it's scrolled on me quickly.
Any reason why behind someone mentioning a nosing note and then all of a sudden you smell it?
Well, the power of suggestion is powerful. That's why it's called the power of suggestion.
That's true. Yeah.
Time to get silly, aren't I?
I'd say my nose is medium at best and can detect my own nose, but most of the time this does occasionally happen with me. Something I don't detect initially. Yeah, I mean, it's the power of suggestion, as Andrew said. It's someone says, "Oh, I'm getting chalky gunpowder on this," and it's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm getting that as well."
Because that's the tasting that everyone knows.
Yeah, everyone knows that one. Everyone knows, whatever. But it's Jason Davies, good to see you, our West Australian state manager. Good to see you, mate.
Good on you, mate.
Just the way the brain works, similar to assuming a darker whiskey is better. Very good point. It's not.
That's good of Jason to join us because there's a time difference, isn't it? He's on the other side. It's probably 2005 over there in Perth.
Wow. No, it's 5 p.m. in 2020 sometime.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on, they've caught up a bit. I didn't know about the East Coast, West Coast rivalry at the moment. I know about the Melbourne-Sydney one. That's the most obvious.
Look, I'm an Essendon fan, and we've got the West Coast Eagles over there. And sorry, I can't get over that.
There we go. Okay, so let's we'll jump onto some more questions and comments as we come along here. The larger the volume, the less/slower evaporation. Dan Will is talking about the cask size. That question before about the sherry cask whiskies are higher proof than the bourbon ones, and the reason for that.
Yeah, that's why as I got halfway through my sentence, I stopped myself because I realised
you restarted.
Yeah,
you restarted. Yeah. You got it there in the end. There we go. Savage, says Rowan, and ha from Jason. Yes, look, it's true. 2005. That is a savage comment.
Yeah, it's 1993.
Savagely real.
I love Perth. I've been there a couple of times.
I love Perth as well. I love Perth.
Beautiful city.
Love our team over at Lafayette. Love your work, Jason. Love all our members over there. So thank you so much.
You've just put something in front of me, I've noticed.
Yeah, I mean, if we're
let's just move that big bottle and show this little small bottle.
and this is exactly what I mean. There was a bit of sort of umming and ahhing about which whiskey to finish on.
Was there?
Well, I mean, in the pack.
Oh, in the pack. Right.
In the pack.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about this at all. And then it was we went with the 33.139. As Andrew's getting that ready and refreshing his palate a bit, there's Lachlan's comment before about sister casks, which isn't a phrase that we really use, but it's kind of one that is about that, this is .139 and we just recently had .138.
I can't listen to you. I'm reading some stuff.
No, we're answering an earlier comment here. Come on. Will Essen have any players send over? That's the question. Geez, Eddie throwing the boot in. Yeah, look, we've been feeding him drams all night. This happens.
If you've ever been to a tasting, you'll know that I like to throw out a couple of comments to induce laughter in the room. And occasionally, that might make something a little bit sharp.
Just throw some smack down.
All right.
Just remember, AD, you have one of us leading your team.
Yeah, I just read that. Yeah.
Wow, the burns just never stop tonight. The bants, the Friday night bants.
Bants. Now,
bants.
what's bants?
Banter. It's a short of banter.
Well, I thought it was a cross between banter and a rant.
Well, it could be. It's all yours now.
How rude of me. Sorry.
No. Stop.
Oh, look at that colour.
Look at the colour. As our good friend Tony would say, the colour is
correct. And as our good friend Sam would say, the colour is medium.
Medium.
So look, we now have to start referring to this distillery as number 33 because we're officially at it now.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is 33 day.
So happy 33 day Eve.
Happy 33 day. And a good shout out to my good friend Mickey. Thank you, Mickey, for your wonderful work. I know you're hanging up the booth shortly, but we have tremendously appreciated your work there over a long time. It's one thing to sign up as distillery manager, but you also take on the role of ambassador. Mickey has been very generous to the society, particularly with the Australian tours that we've done when we've paid a visit and dropped in, taken us around personally, opened up some amazing casks for us in the warehouse. So Mickey, cheers, mate. And even though the festival's not going ahead on the island right now, I know you're busy. So cheers and thank you. Oh.
Just going to see if we've missed anything on anything here.
Just while you're checking that, we've obviously changed flavour profile and we've gone from whiskies that probably had a small amount of peat to the distillery that is famed for having the highest concentration of peat in their regular make. And it's important day in, day out, when you look at the campaigns that they're doing every day, this distillery has the highest level of peating when measured in ppm, parts per million, on the island. And yes, we know Octomore is off the scale and other things like that, but you've got to look at what these distilleries do day in, day out. And this distillery is the highest at 55 parts per million. To put that in context, Lagavulin, Lefroy, Carlila are at 35 parts per million peat. Port Charlotte is 40, Bamore is 25, and Kilherman's doing strange things that can't really be generalised. But there you go.
Also remembering that when you're talking about ppm, and Andrew has written about this extensively on Whiskey and Wisdom. How good's a third-party plug? Look, but it's true though. I mean, the
second party, you got bottles that are right in front of me.
No. But this is no the measuring where it's measured.
Yeah, it
plays a huge part of what that number means, and that's why some whiskies that are 60 parts per million are sometimes taste peatier or smokier than 200 parts per million. So anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Tonight's about just enjoying convivial company, enjoying a few society drams, and a few single casks from the festival releases tonight.
Robert says he's not getting a lot of no's on the 33. Yeah, try harder,
okay,
mate.
Try harder. Yep. 60.
Sorry.
No. 60.
No, but I'll tell you what.
61.3%. You might just need a refresh of water on that.
But we are coming off an incredibly fragrant nose from the previous whiskey. So we're going for something that was very fragrant, very complex, something that's a little more compacted. Than what's on offer on the nose.
Yep. And I want to thank everyone for entering the ballot to win a bottle of the 33 or the 29 from the outturn. I won't say the exact number, but there were hundreds of members entered for the 33, and just under that for the 29. So they were very popular, and if you got one, you had less than 3% chance of winning it. Anyway, but it was so slunge it if you got one, and if you didn't, you get to enjoy one right now with us. So cheers.
I tell you what, Robert, look, it was quiet to start with, but it is starting to really open up. And folks, you probably know the trick, but if you are struggling, if the nose is a bit quiet for you, stick your hand on top, give it a good swirl, agitate it, really excite that whiskey. I can see your reaction there.
No, I just had a taste.
Oh, yeah.
That is not a quiet palate.
And then come in. And wow, suddenly you've activated that whiskey. Nothing you can do. Hand on top, bit on your hand. Rub your hands together.
All right, here we go.
And that is now really giving a far more complex, detailed nose. Always do that with peated whiskies, folks. If you've not seen that trick before, hand on top, little splash on your hands, rub them together, just let it evaporate. And you really start to get some deeper secrets of what this whiskey's got on offer. It's also good for broadcasting, talking into your hands when there's a microphone in front of you.
Yeah, just in case I want to hear what we're talking about.
Wow.
Barbecued charred pineapple, says Rob. I'll come along right with that. It's right on the palate. It's like a grilled pineapple note, which is not uncommon with the character of the distillery. Actually, I find. I often actually with this distillery, with Distillery 33 and Happy Distillery 33 Eve Day. This is actually there's a tasting note of Distillery 33 I often get, which is grilled lemon, like a charred lemon note.
You're a legend, because for me, this distillery always gives citrus, and specifically lemon citrus. And the fact that you're using the word charred, well, it's
like a barbecued lemon.
There you go. We have
We've meat nexus. Yeah, it only took 5 drams.
Barbecued lemon. I like that one. Talk to Tony about barbecued bananas one day.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I bet you he doesn't mean barbecued banana. He's all into the smoked meats, though, and all that kind of weird stuff. Barbecued ribs, anyone, says Joel. Yeah, I get a bit of barbecued ribs. I think the sherry cask is almost going to give you that sherry, sweet glaze kind of note, like pork glaze kind of note. The things you learn on this stream. Did you just use cask strength whiskey to sanitize your hands? Stuart, yes, we did. It's over 60%, so it actually does double.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a question for all of you. I'm going to direct it at Matt in a moment, but it's for everyone. What do you think is the best Islay distillery that works well in sherry casks? Which Islay distillery works best with sherry casks?
I'm going to ask an add-on to that question.
Oh, he's going to answer.
No. Do you mean now or historically?
Oh, I'm going to say they're both the same.
No. Ooh. Okay.
Well, I'm impressed that you've made a distinction. So that means you have 2 answers.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so give us both your answers.
Historically, I'm going to go with Distillery 33.
Right, okay. Right, which means now your answer is?
Distillery 53.
Okay. Not a lot of sherry 53 around, I have to say.
But if you spot them.
Okay. Well, I would have said 33. But for me, 33 just consistently works beautifully with sherry casks.
It does.
And you've got another example of it right here.
I also know which Islay distillery works least well with sherry casks, but that's a discussion for another time.
Ask question later.
No, I'm going to agree with Andrew. It's even historically and even now. I mean, to be able to have a second fill Oloroso taste that good, that is an unbelievable whiskey. Yeah. It's there's so much going on that, and I don't want to drink it all. I just want to enjoy what's left in this little smidge in the glass here. Ooh, Sham says Distillery 3, and Sherry asks.
He's got a point.
Yeah, no, you know what?
He's got a point.
You might have been caught out on that one. There you go.
What was that? That bottling that started with the word black? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, one of those ones.
Yeah. That's historically, isn't it?
That's historical. That's why I kind of asked, because like maybe it's
good call. Good call. I have you're right. Some of the well-aged sherry casks from Distillery 3 have been they are the world's best. No doubt about it.
Or doubt about it.
Mm. What did other people? I saw someone said Lagavulin.
There was a Lagavulin comment. Yeah, yes, it's since flown up.
Sham said 2.80. Do you remember that, Sham? That is one of the best society bottlings of all time. That is up there in my top 5 ever distillery society bottles. 2.80. Man, that was a whiskey.
Sure. We'd go 29. Oh, okay, 29 from Annalisa.
29, yeah.
For sherry casks, okay. I'll get that.
When it works well,
it works well.
Works well.
Works well.
Yeah.
You know what the name on this whiskey was? You would not believe. It's a whiskey that is unbelievably good. It's got so much going on. You can see there's an octopus wearing a top hat. I mean, that pretty much tells you everything you need to know. I agree with even the name on that whiskey. You would not believe how fun that is. It's just such an enjoyable whiskey.
It is, isn't it?
And I know that once you've had a few cask strength drams, you don't really like it's. You're a bit more anesthetized to it. You're a bit more sort of used to it. But that does not taste like 61.3%.
Not at all. No.
That would.
I was just about to say I have no inclination to add water whatsoever.
We almost need we need Shane Colognion's tongue here just to actually confirm the proof on that one for us. There we go.
And Andy Davis has an unopened 2.80 at home. That was a silly thing to post, mate, because I know where you live.
We're going for a quick Uber after this stream. Thanks, folks.
Honestly, I don't know if any of you trawl the auction sites and look for stuff that turns up. If you ever see 2.80, I don't care what it costs. Buy it. It was an incredible bottling.
We haven't had any twos lately, but we do get some twos through from time to time.
Yeah, we
which is
do.
good. Yeah,
Oh,
which
look,
is great.
I think certain. It's a discussion for another day.
There we go.
I'll tell you what. Next time I host live stream when you want a night off, I'll talk about
anytime.
the society's relationship with distilleries and how and when we suddenly get casks and why we don't get some casks.
Yeah. There we go.
Something I'd be happy to talk about some other night.
The peat on this one comes across less old salty sea dog than usual 33s. I like it. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's a second fill Oloroso butt. So we're not getting the first punch of sherry coming through. It's the second filling as a result, which is interesting too, because it means that you're actually getting greater harmony and interplay between the distillery character, the spirit character, and the cask and the sherry influence of that. Anyone who can remember the Fay Sheila bottling from this distillery, I think it was it 2000? What year was El Diablo? Was that 2011? 11 it was, wasn't it? Yeah. Little hints of that with this one. A
little bit of hint of El Diablo.
Yeah.
It didn't actually say that on the front label of that release either.
No, it didn't.
That was on the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like the side name for it. Anyway.
Can I tell you when our society tour rocked up at the door in 2011, Mickey had several bottles of that Fay Sheila bottle in the old Diablo and just said, let's open this, guys. And
wow.
Whew,
that's an experience.
That was an experience.
There you go.
So I was having to turn up to another distillery half an hour later.
They knew you all stunk like arsenic. They knew. They could smell that distillery. Like, we know where they've come from.
Let's just say a few members struggled to find their plot up at Lefroy. It was, yeah.
Craig Morton asks, and this is probably a question for our cellar master, has a 111 bottling ever come to Australia?
111.
Gavulan.
No, not in my time.
Been very few of them. Very few.
That's right. Never. Not in my time. I've been a member since the start. No.
Squid ink pasta. Ooh. That's a cool tasting.
I don't know if Franz Schur is still watching, but he did an amazing whiskey dinner for the society at Dank Street Depot with Darren Robertson as chef many years ago, where one of the dishes had squid ink, and I've never forgotten. It was the most amazing experience. And as such, I actually have relied on squid ink as a descriptor a couple of times. Franz, if you're watching, mate, when was that dinner? When did we do that one with Darren at Dank Street Depot? I'm going to guess 2012, 2013. Maybe you can correct me, but it was an amazing night.
Didn't think so, says Craig. Yeah, no, well, exactly. Not too many 111s, and there really isn't really any independent 111s kicking around.
Well, this is the thing.
That's the thing, yeah.
Look at what else is going on in the industry and in the game with the other labels, and you don't see it there.
No, it does. No, it does. And there's I'm not going to say that anyway. But that's a discussion for another time.
Can I ask you? I'm sure the viewers would like to know when you're hosting live streams, because I've experienced this when I've had to sit in for you.
Sure.
How often do you think of something and that sentence is from here down to your mouth, and you're just about to say it, and you're saying, "Oh, probably shouldn't say that."
Yeah, that's not very appropriate.
Yeah, happens to me a bloody lot.
Yeah. Look, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. There was one live stream that I did, which was pre-broadcasting them to Facebook group, which was where we're just doing them to Instagram.
Oh, back in the Instagram.
No,
days.
the good old days.
God, the days of Instagram.
Like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But there was one stream I did where at the end of the stream, I always pressed save so we could put it up on YouTube for those who'd missed it live. I did not press save at the end of that stream because it just didn't really have the right lilt, and there were a couple of things said which were a bit like, "Oh, that doesn't sound very good." And it's sort of like it's not that it was bad, but just like there you go. There was one stream at least where I've gone, no, that wasn't very good, so I just didn't upload it.
Yeah, no, I've just frequently wanted to say something, and then your brain, the filter just catches and go, "Oop, inappropriate."
Yeah, the perils of live.
Yeah.
No edits. What unsung distillery would you love to see a smashing festival bottling from? Oh, it's a good question, because actually the planning, well, I'm going to be completely honest with you, the planning for 2021 is already done. That's locked away. But 2022, 2023, that they might be looking at that now. So the question is, what unsung distillery would you like to see a smashing festival bottling from, says Rob Akers, thinking of those sleeper codes you mentioned before?
Well, I can think of one straight away. I was very impressed a couple of years ago when I dropped into Royal Brackla, which I struggle to see why it has the right to call itself a Speyside whiskey, because it's right up in the...
it's a royal distillery, though. How dare you?
Yeah,
How dare you?
It's a long way from the Spey River. But they do some amazing things there. And
I remember you remarking on the distillate character of that distillery.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, great stuff. Yeah.
That's an unsung whiskey and distillery that I would love to see something done with. Now when did we last have a Royal Brackla on an outturn? It wasn't that long ago, was it?
No. It was. I don't know what distillery that is, but it was. We had a 55 dot something recently on an outturn. Digging Up Ginger was the name of it. It was a spicy and dry 10-ish-year-old, 12-year-old whiskey. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was spicy and dry, Digging Up Ginger. It was about 2 outturns ago. It was Speaking of outturns, whilst we're nearing the end of our dramming session together, Attractive Opposites is our June outturn. It has some of the most diverse bottlings we've ever offered, and I almost get to say that every month, but it is true. I mean, it's a fascinating outturn with a malt of the month of I Like Big Butts from Distillery 66. No, I'm not making that up. That's actually the name of the whiskey. It's a sherry.
Can you believe it took us 30 years
to use that?
Come up with that? Like, crikey.
Angus, if you watch these at all, I know you're responsible. But it's a sherried whiskey that then had an extra maturation in a sherry cask. So it's an interesting 66. I'm going to be reviewing that whiskey on the live stream next week. Keep an eye out on our group, of course, for all what's coming up with June outturn. We've got a whole lot of things going on in there, including the ridiculously attractive looking 24.139 in there, but lots of things in there. Love a Brackla, says Akers, of course. Brackla, very tasty spirit.
Jason, good call, mate. Dale Ewan, that is a great distillery. I agree with Jason there.
But you also agree with you like Fetacan, and you have a newfound appreciation of Fetacan, and you've said that before. I'm not going to let you get away with not recanting that one.
I had a lovely time at the distillery. I tried some amazing casks in their warehouse.
It doesn't get much more diplomatic than that.
No,
I get it.
It's a great look. It is. Put it this way: it's an unsung distillery, that's for sure. And we don't get it in Australia. That's the other thing too. It's a distillery we just don't see. It's not. Doesn't have a huge export market.
Will you be doing tastings? Keen to see what you think of the 30. Oh yeah, well I'll be tasting some from Outturn, but honestly, I'm going to leave most of the bottles for members. It's the 30 I've not tasted. Strangely soothing, deep, rich, and dried fruits. It's the first fill sherried whiskey from Distillery 30 that is renowned for their sherried whiskies in many ways. And Liam Smee writes an interesting comment that 35 is now a whole other dram. So you held on to a bit of 35. Okay. Well done. Very nicely done.
Yeah, which we say, I mean, I've been preaching this for 20 years. A cask strength dram will change in the glass. We had to educate people about this 20 years ago when people didn't know what cask strength whiskey was.
Yeah.
The fact that it changed so tremendously.
You don't find that often with 40% whiskey. 40% ABV. They sit in the glass. They stay as they are. It's like the
Or they
cheeseburgers.
deteriorate.
They deteriorate. Well,
Especially as opposed to widening and going in new directions.
Yes.
Yeah, hugely.
Really appreciate all the comments coming through tonight. I think we'll call it there.
Well, we're out of whiskey.
We are out of whiskey. We only had the samples for ourselves, but the bottles are actually empty because they were literally for.
I was going to pick up on that. So someone just asked a comment about, are you going to go through comment number 30 there? Folks, you got to appreciate when you only get 12 bottles of something for the entire country or 18 or whatever, it's a big decision for us to make to crack a bottle open for a live stream or for any other purpose. When you've only got 12 bottles for the entire country, to crack one open means
there's now 11 for 11 thousands of members.
For our members.
Yeah, so you're right. It's a problem. So
we ponder very greatly whether to crack a bottle open for what you might loosely call promotional purposes.
Yeah.
When there's so few, when you're dealing with such a limited product. So we don't take that lightly.
No, it's very infrequent, and it's gives us a chance to make sure that members are getting the bottles, not just being opened for good fun.
Yeah.
Love the Vineyard Mudguard 94.5. That's a Vatican. Couldn't believe how long it lasted on site. Yeah, it did sort of linger a bit, which is sleepers. There you go. There's my comment again. I think for me it's 15, like most people. It got me into the amazing world of single malt. And can we talk favorites of the night? Yeah, we should actually talk favorites. We should just finish up with our favorite of the night.
93 for me. Whiskey number 4.
I was going to go with 35 to begin with because I'm a huge fan, but tonight it's the 52.
Okay.
Huge fan of the 52. I think Highly Entertaining for me was the pick of the night. Yours was the 93. Both oily and coastal. Yeah. We're both in the zone.
So our favorite whiskeys were 3 and 4. So when you look at the tasting order, bugger me, we got it right.
we won again. Thank you all, like I say again and again, for being a part of tonight. And you'll see us back on Monday. I'll be back on Monday.
You'll see him back on Monday.
See me back on Monday. You have to put up with me again on Monday. Thank you so much. Monday rant will be back. We'll start talking about attractive opposites, our June outturn. Very exciting outturn to keep you going through winter.
Before he hits stop and cuts us off, we've got hand sanitizer here. Mate, congratulations. Well done. Really appreciate your work. Thank you for doing this for the members. It's fantastic.
We do it for you guys. We love that you all are tuning in and be a part of this. Thank you so much.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you all Monday. Thanks, everyone. Thanks.
Festival on.
Festival on. Call it there.